There's so many actors who have played Spider-Man over the years, and here's just some of my favorite actors to have ever played the role. I'll be including voice actors and live action actors, plus I'll be looking at the movies and TV shows and the video games for Spider-Man. With that all out of the way.
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look and you'll see into your imagination.
Coming in at number 10, I have Hudson Thomas. Hudson played Spider-Man in the MCU animated series What If, and I thought he did a very good job playing that young, still learning how to be Spider-Man version of the character. I know he was supposed to be playing Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man, but to me, I felt like he did his own version of the character. He sounds and acts different from Tom's version, in my opinion. When Hudson's Spider-Man was talking about how much he lost, like he was talking about how he lost Aunt May, Uncle Ben, but still trying to look for the positives and everything, he felt like Spider-Man to me. I feel like Hudson is a solid pick for Spider-Man, and I hope we hear him back in the role in the new Spider-Man animated reboot series. It is possible though that they recast the new Spider-Man for the new animated series, but I do hope Hudson is back in the role for the new animated reboot or semi-reboot MCU, whatever they're doing with that new animated series. Coming in at number 9, I have Christopher Daniel Barnes. Barnes is most famous for playing Spider-Man in the 90s animated series, and I feel he does a good job in the role, but to me, there's nothing outstanding about his portrayal. And I feel like the reason why he's so popular is due to the nostalgia of the 90s animated Spider-Man TV series for those people. I don't have nostalgia for that series because I grew up with the Spectacular and Ultimate Spider-Man TV shows, but overall, I feel Barnes is a good Spider-Man. Just, there's nothing outstanding about his version of the character, in my opinion. Coming in number 8, I have Tobey Maguire. Look, I know me having Tobey this low might rub some people the wrong way, but to me, I just don't think he is this great, perfect casting for Spider-Man. I think Tobey is good for what Raimi wanted from his version of Spider-Man to be, but for me, when I've read like the Spider-Man comics and all that other stuff, like when I think of Spider-Man, to me, it isn't super accurate to what Spider-Man acts like in the comics, in the main Marvel universe. Tobey is a good Peter Parker, but not really a good Spider-Man in my opinion as well. I really don't picture or think of Tobey when I think of Spider-Man. All I see is Raimi's version of Spider-Man, which is not a bad thing, but it's not like a perfect Spider-Man from the comics to me. I have a special place in my heart for Tobey Spider-Man because I watched his movies all the time, like his Spider-Man movies as a kid. But as I got older, I read the comics, I saw more versions of Spider-Man, and to me, it's a good portrayal of the character for what he is. Coming in at number 7, I have Quentin Flynn. Flynn played Spider-Man in the Ultimate Alliance game, and I feel like Flynn really fits the part of Spider-Man. Yes, we don't see what his Peter Parker is like at all, which is why he isn't higher on this list, but his Spider-Man I felt was really good. His Spider-Man was quippy and funny, plus serious when he needed to be. I felt like his voice for Spider-Man has stuck with me quite a bit, which is why he is at number 7. But again, I don't know what his Peter would have been, or would have been sounded like, because he only played Spider-Man in the game, which is unfortunately why he is not higher on this list. But I think he might have done a good job if he had the chance to play Peter Parker. I'm sure he's never going to play Spider-Man again, but from what we saw of his version of Spider-Man in the game, I really liked him. And it's just my opinion. I think he did a really good job playing Spider-Man, and it's just really, really good. It's just his Peter Parker, we have no idea what it's like, and I think it just would have been similar to his Spider-Man performance, but we never know. Coming in number 6, I have Drake Bell. Drake Bell played Spider-Man in the Ultimate Spider-Man TV show, and I felt like he did a good job with what he was given. The show wasn't that good at first, but it got better as time went along, and I felt like Drake Bell's Spider-Man got better too. Bell does a good Spider-Man and a good Peter Parker to me, and I could be blinded by nostalgia here because, like I said, I grew up with Spectacular Spider-Man and the Ultimate Spider-Man show. I was like 9 or 10 when I watched Ultimate Spider-Man. It came out in 2012, and I did grow up with watching that show, even though it wasn't great at times, and I felt like as like a 9-10-year-old, I didn't think this was that good of a Spider-Man show, but because I first watched Spectacular, I remember watching that all the time too. But I feel like Ultimate Spider-Man got better, and I could be biased, like I said, or like blinded by nostalgia a bit, but overall, I feel like this was a good portrayal of Spider-Man, and I think he did a good job in my opinion. Coming in number 5, I have Andrew Garfield. I'm just going to say this about Andrew Garfield. I believe Garfield was the best actor to have ever played Spider-Man. Like, just look at these great acting moments from him as Spider-Man.
No, please. What? What? Say it! Say what you want to say! What do you want to say? Where you been? You're dead!
I get goosebumps every time. It's just incredible acting by Andrew Garfield. To me, he was a great Spider-Man based off of his movies that he was given and what he did with those movies and what he was supposed to do. But I feel like he wasn't that good of a Peter Parker. I think he could have been better. I think he could have been better as like a Spider-Man and just as Peter Parker in general if he was given a script where he wasn't told to act like so creepy. He acts very creepy in some of the Amazing Spider-Man moments in those movies. But in No Way Home, I felt like he was really good as Spider-Man. I think he was the best Spider-Man out of the three of them in that movie. But we didn't see enough of that version of Spider-Man where he wasn't being so creepy. Because I guess John Watts told him to act like Spider-Man. Because Peter was like very curious and like he sounded like a scientist. Where he was like, oh, magic exists, and like in No Way Home, he sounded more like he was able to do what he wanted to do with Spider-Man, in my opinion, based off what Andrew Garfield did in No Way Home. Also, again, Andrew Garfield did a great job in No Way Home with the emotional scenes when he's talking about Gwen. He's like, I wasn't pulling my punches, and it sounded like he was pretty bitter and brutal at some point. Now I want to see an Amazing Spider-Man 3 where he isn't holding his punches like that. Or, I don't know, I want to see an Amazing Spider-Man 3 now, and I think he could do a much better job without studio interference, and maybe get Mark Webb back. I don't know, but with that all being said, I feel like he was a great Spider-Man and not so great Peter Parker, but overall I really liked him as Spider-Man. Coming in number 4, I have Josh Keaton. Keaton played Spider-Man in the Spectacular Spider-Man TV series, which I feel is the best adaptation of Spider-Man based off of how Spider-Man was, how they did a good job with his friends. Like, to me, Spectacular Spider-Man has the best version of Mary Jane we've ever seen on TV, movie, video games, whatever. Also, I think they did an okay job with his villains. They did a great job with Green Goblin. Can't really say they did a good job with all the other villains, but for the most part, I think this show did a great adaptation of Spider-Man in my opinion. To me, I really like Josh Keaton's Spider-Man and Peter Parker. Also, I feel he could be higher if he had more time to play the role instead of just 2 seasons, which mainly focused on him being in high school. And I really wonder how Keaton would have handled the really emotional scenes like Gwen's death. I believe they would have done the death of Gwen Stacy. And I really wonder how Keaton would have handled the really emotional scenes like Gwen's death. I feel he was great from what we saw of him, and I pray that one day we can get a Spectacular Spider-Man Season 3 and beyond so we can see the full vision of the series, because we were supposed to see this version of Spider-Man post-high school, in college, and eventually marrying Mary Jane apparently, and I think all of that would have sounded really great, and I really wonder how Josh Keaton's version of Spider-Man would have been like in the college years. I really wonder like how his portrayal of Spider-Man would have been, and he probably would be number 1 if we could see post-high school version of Spider-Man. Overall, such a great Spider-Man in so many ways. It's just I feel the next actors, I connected to them more as Spider-Man, and we had more time with them in the role, and just like with their voices and just the performances in general. But Josh Keaton, I think from what we saw, the limited amount we did see from him, I think he was really good, and I not just really good, I think he was great. It's just not enough time in the role, and we only saw 2 seasons of him in high school, and I think we needed to see more of him to feel more of a connection. Just for me personally, I know that Josh Keaton, I think he is number 1 on some people's list. This is just my opinion. I didn't connect to him as much as the next 3 actors because we didn't get enough of him. Coming in number 3, I have Tom Holland. To me, Tom Holland is a great Peter Parker, great Spider-Man. It also helps that we did see him in live action. To me, this is the first live action role first time live action Spider-Man we had great from both Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I think he nails the awkwardness, not really being popular, and all of just Peter's quirks just in general. And then I think he really nails the Spider-Man aspect as well, because I think he's really funny for the most part. He's got quips, and he feels like a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man that's just really young and inexperienced as of now. Well, mainly in Homecoming, he felt like he was an inexperienced Spider-Man. But the other movies, I felt like he felt like an experienced Spider-Man, but lacked some things like the responsibility aspect. Mainly we saw that in Far From Home, where I think Peter wasn't really given enough stakes in that movie. But No Way Home, I think they did a really good job with that, with Spider-Man. I think Tom Holland did a really good job. And just to me, he really feels like the best live-action version of Spider-Man in my opinion. And now that we're going to be seeing the post high school version of the character, I think he could even get to number one, because just to see like the day-to-day life of Tom Holland's version of the character, with him like struggling with rent and struggling with getting jobs and just all that stuff, we're probably going to see him in the Daily Bugle too. It's just really tragic that that version of the character has gone through so much, and I think Tom Holland does a good job of playing that version of Spider-Man where he feels like there's a lot of things that happened to him. You know what I mean? He lost his aunt. He probably lost Uncle Ben. I'm not really sure. He was hinted at. We did see have a suitcase for Ben Parker. Who knows how much Ben Parker really meant to Peter, but he also lost Tony too, and just Peter's lost a lot of stuff, and now no one knows who he is, and that's just really, really tragic. And I think Tom Holland does a good job playing the character, just like he's lost a lot, and I think Tom Holland just does a good job portraying that on screen, especially in No Way Home. Not really in Far From Home. I think he did a good job with the character in Homecoming, and I think Tom Holland nails the Peter Parker side of Spider-Man and the Spider-Man side of the character. Coming in number 2, I have Yuri Lowenthal. Lowenthal is pretty much a perfect Spider-Man to me. Perfect Peter Parker, perfect Spider-Man in almost every way. When I read the Spider-Man comics sometimes I hear his voice as Peter and as Spider-Man. He does a great job with emotional moments. His portrayal of Spider-Man is pretty much perfect in every way, but the only reason why Lowenthal isn't number 1 to me is because I sometimes hear his previous work in his performance as Spider-Man. Like, I watched a lot of Ben 10 as a kid, and sometimes when I hear his version of Spider-Man or see his version of Spider-Man in the Spider-Man PS4, sometimes I hear Ben 10. And I also hear Superman too, because he did play Superman in the Legion of Superheroes animated series. I grew up on that series too. I hear a lot of his previous characters in his portrayal of Spider-Man, and that's why he isn't number 1 to me. It's basically he would probably be number 1 if he never played those characters. This is my problem. It's not his fault. This is my thing. Like, to me, he's not the perfect Spider-Man, because I also hear his other characters in his role as Spider-Man. Like, sometimes when he's saying certain lines or doing certain things, I hear Ben 10. You know what I mean? It's just kind of weird. And I also hear a little bit of Superman too, because he did play Superman, like I said. I think he does a really good job with the performances, just in my opinion. He isn't the perfect Spider-Man to me. He's not the voice I always hear when I read Spider-Man comics. Sometimes he is. Like, maybe if I played Spider-Man PS4 and I read a Spider-Man comic right afterwards, I'm hearing his version of Spider-Man in my head as like when I'm reading the pages and stuff. But as of right now, he isn't the perfect Spider-Man to me. Maybe when I play Spider-Man 2, like when it comes out, his new game that he's going to be in, Yuri Lowenthal, maybe he will jump up to number 1 because his performance is just so amazing. It's like the perfect Spider-Man, but I don't know. To me, he's not the perfect Spider-Man because I don't always hear his voice when I read Spider-Man comics and pages and stuff. He's not the voice I always think of. And when I play Spider-Man PS4, I sometimes hear Ben 10 and I sometimes hear Superman, which is why he's just not. It keeps him from being number 1 to me, in my opinion. Coming in at number 1, no one's probably gonna really remember this performance as Spider-Man, but this is my opinion because this is the voice I hear most of the time when I read Spider-Man comics, and when I think of like Spider-Man in my head, this is the voice, this is the actor I always picture. So coming in number 1, I have Sam Riegel. Sam Riegel played Spider-Man in the Amazing Spider-Man video games. I played the first Amazing Spider-Man game a whole lot as a kid, an unhealthy amount, I think. Like, there was a time when I was playing that game so much. I don't know why. It was addicting to me. I really liked the story. To me, that feels like the Amazing Spider-Man 2, like, in a lot of ways. It feels like a sequel to the first movie. It's a pretty good game in my opinion. I recommend checking it out, but I played that game a lot. And I think he's just the perfect Spider-Man to me. He captures all aspects of the character to me. That's just the voice. I think that's Spider-Man to me. It's probably because I played the game a lot. I don't really know, but to me, when I read Spider-Man comics and when I picture Spider-Man's voice, his voice to me is Spider-Man. He also still does a good Peter Parker too. Does a good job with the emotional moments, especially in the first game. He does a good job in the second game, but I think he's better in the first game. I know I'm in the minority with this opinion. I think a lot of people are going to dislike me for having this opinion, but I can't help that this is the voice I hear when I read Spider-Man comics. And this is just my opinion, like I said, and I think Yuri is a better Spider-Man in many aspects, but I feel Sam is just the perfect voice for Spider-Man to me, and the perfect Peter Parker too. And he's just my favorite Spider-Man actor to ever play Spider-Man, in my opinion, and he's just perfect to me. So that was my list. This is completely subjective because I think no one is going to agree with my top pick. I don't think I've ever seen someone have Sam at number one. But maybe I'm wrong and someone will agree with me that he is the best Spider-Man. Probably not. It's probably going to be Tobey Maguire, Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield. Maybe Yuri or Josh will be number one on someone else's list too. Not really sure. This is just my list, and this is who I feel are my favorite Spider-Man and just who I feel like the most perfect Spider-Man, just in my opinion.